Welcome, ladies. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so delighted that you're here. Today's workshop is all about my 6-pillar strategy, and what that is basically is when I sat down and kind of looked at what it means to me to build and grow a successful business. I needed to organize that in my head. When I really decided to I call it turning pro. It was a decision I made to turn pro and really kind of go for it with my business. I really needed to make sense of what was out there. You know, one of my favorite coaches, Steve Chandler, says you can find anything and everything you would ever need to know about building a business online on the internet. You can find everything that you need out there. And so that's a blessing and a curse, because, you know, for sure, all the information that you could ever need to know to build a successful business is there, but also, you know, navigating that is an absolute nightmare. So I built the 6-pillar model for me and my brain, because I just couldn't do it any other way. I needed it to be in a kind of, you know, sensible format. So let me see. Okay. I have one thing. Just bear with me one moment. Okay. Oh, that does work. Okay. So hopefully you can still see me. Let's see. Can someone just let me know in the chat if the presentation is obscured by the boxes? I think I'm just going to close some things down. Okay, there we go. Okay, so I just want to tell you a little bit about me. Some of you know me. Let's see if I can do this. It seems I can't change the slide when I have it small, and when it's big, it's obscured. If anyone has any tips, just bear with me 1 second. Okay, let's see. I'm going to make it big. Okay, so there we go. So I'm a business and mindset coach. I'm also the founder of the Female Business Academy, which is basically what this model is all about. Everything that I do in the academy and teach is kind of organized under these 6 pillars. And is my way, again, as I said earlier, of organizing how to build a successful business. And it's how I present the information in the academy. I'm sorry, I can't. Can someone just tell me? 1 second, I'm having technical issues here. Can someone tell me in the chat if, when I have it big, the video is obscuring the site, because it's obscuring it for me? Can you still see the slides when I have the screen big? That makes sense. Anyone? Oh, I'm glad you can hear, Zena. Other people can hear as well. They're covered when it's big. Okay. So I'm gonna hide that. I'm gonna move that down. So you're not gonna see me, unfortunately. And I'm gonna move that. And I'm going to close the chat. So it means, unfortunately, I'm going to have the chat closed, but I'm going to open it at certain points in the presentation. That's fine. Okay, there we go. Hopefully everyone can see the slides. So what do I do as a business and mindset coach and in the Female Business Academy? Essentially what I do is I provide female entrepreneurs with the tools and strategies to build and grow a meaningful business without selling their soul. And that's the key thing for me. There's lots of schools out there and places that you can get information on growing a business. But for me, the key, and what I really wanted to help people with, or women in particular with, is tools and strategies that help them grow meaningful businesses. So I call them soulful entrepreneurs, who want to change the world with their business, and they don't want to sell their soul in the process. So there's a lot of stuff out there. There's lots of strategies and techniques that you can use that don't feel good to heart-centered entrepreneurs. So for that reason, that's why I decided to create the Female Business Academy, to kind of like support women. And I do it in my coaching as well. I do it in all the things that I offer in my free offerings and my newsletters that I send out weekly, all of that stuff. And I'm not just those things, business and mindset coach and founder of the Academy. I'm also a mama, a recent mama. My baby is 7.5 months, and I'm life partner to my partner, Joanne. So there's a little picture of them. They're both hanging out in my office. You can't see it, but that's the sofa right behind me. Joanne on the left and Oscar on the right. And so why did I create what I created, what I have created in my business this year? In fact, I originally worked as a life coach. I had a different business called Life is Limitless. Some of you may know that about me. I left the UK in 2012 because I got really tired of the usual kind of corporate bullshit. Basically, I decided that I needed to do something that really meant something to me. I tried to make my career around doing something impactful, helping people. I worked in charities for a lot of my time, but I got to a point where I felt like I wasn't really helping anybody, and I needed to leave. And that's when I made the decision to go to build a business as a life coach. I sold everything that I owned in 2012. I quit my well-paid job in program management, and I bought a one-way ticket to Bangkok, and that was years ago. And since then I had a couple of years where I was just, I guess you could say, finding myself. I always describe it as my own eat, pray, love story. And then I kind of made the decision, as I mentioned earlier, to turn pro, and decided it was time to get serious about my business. And I hired an incredible coach, and then embarked on an apprenticeship with him in 2014. And the rest, they say, is history. And so one of the things I realized in 2014 and 15, when my business started to take off and I was coaching a lot of people, I was coaching both men and women, I realized that there was a pattern I kept seeing of incredible, amazing women holding themselves back from truly sharing their gifts with the world. And I couldn't really get it. And I also saw it a lot in my relationship with my partner. He's also a coach, and I see him and have seen him over the years just kind of have amazing ideas about his business and things that he could do. And as soon as he has the idea, he's into implementation. He's out there, he's doing it. He doesn't have the same kind of process that I saw myself having of, being completely and utterly crippled by self-doubt and fear and questioning whether I was good enough and all of that stuff. And I saw it with my female clients. And I, not to generalize, there are men who do this and there are women who don't do it. So, but in my experience and generally speaking, what I've seen is women kind of crippled by perfectionism and all of that stuff. And so one of the things I realized, and it's very recent, I made the decision to focus solely on working with female entrepreneurs only this year. It was while I was pregnant with my baby. And so I decided and felt inspired to work with female entrepreneurs with the realization that I could have a greater impact on the world if I worked to empower and support other women who are trying to change the world. And so that's the whole thing. That's the whole ethos behind my business. If I can help other women who are trying to change the world, then I can change the world in an even bigger scale than I could if I didn't do that. So my mission, and I mentioned this a bit later on as well, is to help women to make the world a better place by building insanely successful, deeply impactful, and highly authentic businesses while staying true to the whispers of their soul. And my use of the words insanely successful are very intentional here. One of the things, again, I've seen a lot with the women that I've worked with in the past is it's almost like they feel that they need permission to be ambitious. And I think that there's a lot of conditionings going on in our society that tells women that we're not supposed to be ambitious. So, we're supposed to be mothers and we're supposed to look after our families and all of that stuff, but we're not supposed to be wildly ambitious. And there's so many negative stereotypes around successful, ambitious women out there. I don't need to go through those. So for me, that's a big part of my mission, is not just helping women in business, but to be really super successful in business, whatever that means for them. So then I'd love to know a bit about you. So if you would, this is where I'll open up the chat. I mean, it's open all the time. You can put stuff, but I'm going to bring it into view. Just give us a shout out. Let us know where you are in the world. And if you want to share anything about your business name, or a link to your website, anything like that, and also any struggles. And again, I'm not going to spend too much time in the chat, but I think it's just nice for you all as you're listening through to just see who else is on the call and see what other women are up to. So I'm just going to open that up and let's see where the chat is. Hopefully you can all see the chat. If you don't know where the chat is or anything like that, and you'll see from seeing my screen share, your bar, there's a black bar which has all the controls and all of that stuff, and also has the chat room. It disappears from view sometimes. So if you hover your mouse, it can either be over the top of the screen or the bottom, or it might even be on one of the sides. You'll bring up that bar and you'll be able to access the chat. If you don't see chat, you can click more and it's there. So I see Leslie saying hello. Hey, Leslie. There are women on this call I know from all over the world, which makes me super, super excited. So we've got Joe from the UK. Oh, and I should say, I'm originally from the UK, but this call is happening from Spain. I live in Valencia, Spain now. And me and my partner settled here 2 years ago after traveling. We met in Thailand, on a tropical beach, which was wonderful. And then we lived traveled through Colombia, and then we lived off the grid in the Mexican jungle for a while. And I see Helen. And what I love as well about this call, there's a mix of women who know me from my academy, which I love that they're here and supporting me on this, and also people I've never met or talked to before. So if you don't know me, if you haven't been in touch with me before, this is your first experience of me, then do drop your name and a link to who you are in the chat. So I'd love to have a look at that later. Okay, so while that's going on, we'll go back to the presentation. So who this is for. So I mentioned earlier, I said soulful entrepreneurs, and that's kind of like a catch-all or heart-led. I always wonder how people feel about those terms, but effectively it's for me, it's women who want to change the world. So change makers. I generally focus on supporting women with online business, and that's because that's my experience. That's what I've built. So it's easier for me to support women in the same area. We're talking about service and relationship-based businesses, coaches, healers, teachers, wellness practitioners, or support services for those kind of people as well. So that's who, and when I say who this is for, this workshop, my work, what I'm going to share today, even if you don't feel like you fit into this list, would be useful to you anyway. But this is kind of my audience, my ideal client. So it's done that annoying thing again where covering up the slide. So my intentions with the workshop, so it's to cut through the noise and minimize overwhelm. That's something that I struggled with in the early days of my business. It's something that my business coach really helped me with. It's what I help my premium clients with, and it's what I want to help all female entrepreneurs with. I think overwhelm is one of the most crippling feelings and states that we can get into, and it's just so frustrating because it's so unnecessary. To give you some practical quick win actions, so hopefully you'll have had a chance to look at the workbook. And you'll see that we're going to go through some questions on the call. Again, because of time, we might not get through actually answering those questions on the call itself. But my purpose here is to kind of share and give you that overview that allows you to go away and maybe sit and really journal on those questions later on. I'd love you to leave this call feeling inspired and excited to take action. And my goal is to get through this content in as short a time as possible so that I don't take up too much of your time, but I do go into enough depth that it's useful for you. So if it feels like I'm going a bit fast, that'll be right. See, it's already 23 minutes past. We haven't even got into it. So here we go. So the strategic overview. So this is the model. So right at the top, we've got vision. Then we have at the bottom, we've got the 6 pillars. They're tribe, money, offerings, connection, service, and support. And then connecting the vision and the pillars is what I call goals with soul. And I call it goals with soul. It's a term that I stole from Danielle Laporte. And the idea behind it for me is that they're goals that we feel good about. It's a focus on how we want to feel in our business, how we want people to feel when they come into contact with our business, rather than goals that are shoulds, things that we feel like we should do. And there's so much of that in the online world around business. You know, we should be here, we should be there, we should be on Twitter and Instagram and doing Facebook Live and all of that stuff. So the reason I emphasize this goals with soul is because it's important to me that what emerges out of this workshop, at least, is this idea that the goals have got to feel good. We don't go into that too much, but I'm just saying that here. And so, again, the whole point of having this model for me is to minimize overwhelm and self-doubt. Like, for me, cutting through the noise, the most effective way to cut through the noise is to have clarity, is to have some sense of, okay, these are the things, these are the 6 key areas that I need to focus on in my business. And this is my vision of where I want to get to. Now, one thing I'll say about the vision is I do have a Creating Your Business Vision workshop happening next Tuesday, exactly like this. It's going to be free to join. Hopefully it's only going to be an hour. Let's see. I tried to do this workshop with the women in my academy. We ended up having, I think, 3 nearly 2-hour calls on it. So this content can be really deep. So again, I'll just emphasize that here we're going quite light touch into it. But if you want to go deeper on the vision, which I think is so crucial, I think if you do nothing else on your business, having a strong vision is just incredibly important. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to take you through the vision and the 6 pillars at a very top level. Just describe basically what success would look like if you had these areas of your business nailed. So you might want to refer to the workbook if you manage to print it out. And on page, I think it's page 2, you've got the checklist there. And that's what I'm referring to. It's the kind of checklist of, this is how we would know that we've got all of these areas done and dusted. So as we go through these, I want to be really clear that this is ideal world. Here, this is not our starting point. This is where we would be after we've done all the work we might do on building our business. And as I go through, one of the things I'm going to do in a later slide is ask you to rate yourself in terms of it can be confidence in tackling this area if you're early on in the journey of your business. If you've already got some of these things in place and you kind of know about this stuff, then you might want to rate yourself in terms of, having it in place. And so, 1 would be, I'm not confident at all, and I don't have anything like this in place. I haven't even thought about it. And to 10 being, I'm totally confident and/or I have this done and dusted. It's in place. So you make a decision where you are based on where you are in your journey. Because if for example, I know there are people on this call whose business is just an idea at this stage. So you're not going to have these things in place. So for those of you who are in that position, then rate your confidence about how you feel in terms of taking action on these areas. So just as we go through the next couple of slides, write down a number between 1 and 10 in terms of how you feel about the area. So the first one is vision. You have a clear written vision of how you want your business to look and how it will support your dream life. Then that's top of the model. Then the first pillar of the 6 is tribe. And so under tribe, you would have, if you had this really done and dusted and you've done all the work you could possibly do on it, you would have a clearly defined customer profile, and you would know who you want as your collaborators, mentors, and mastermind. And again, we'll go into these in more detail in a bit. So if you're like, I'm not sure what customer profile is or what a mastermind is, don't worry, we're gonna look at that. This is just very top level. The next pillar is money. And if you had all of this covered, you would have clear monthly and annual financial goals. You monitor your expenses and income, and you have clarity about your pricing structure. And then the next pillar, this is the third pillar, is offerings. You have complete clarity on your products and or services, who they are for, what they cost, and what impact they will deliver. And again, don't forget to be just jotting down a number in terms of how confident you feel in these areas. And don't worry if the numbers are low. The whole point is that this workshop is going to have you feeling more confident by the end. And then the next pillar is connection. You have a clear connection strategy in place, which covers marketing and sales, networking, social media, email marketing, advertising, all of that stuff. All of the stuff that usually terrifies, especially, I think, heart-centered entrepreneurs. And also the in-person stuff. So it's not just the, it can be in-person meetings and all of that stuff. Any way in which you connect with your people. And then pillar 5 is service. So serving your customers lies at the heart of your business, and you are clear on how you will astonish and delight your clients by serving them powerfully. So this is a big one for heart-centered entrepreneurs. But often what I find is people, whilst it's super, super important, it's often the very reason we've created the business that we've got. We don't necessarily have it built into our systems or our strategies or our plans. So we'll talk a bit more about how you can do that later on. And then support. You have the right tools, processes, and systems in place to ensure the smooth running of your business. You have the right team of people and suppliers to help you succeed. So on the next page, and this should be, was this in your... Yes, this is in your workbook. So you can rate yourself here. And what you do is, if you, for example, you see the numbers on the left-hand side, if for support you gave yourself 6, you would just draw along that line. And the idea is, and then you would fill in the wedge. And the idea is that you have an idea, like a snapshot view of where your strengths and weaknesses are. And one of the things that we'll be talking about later on is the importance of prioritizing. This workshop covers the entirety of your business. So if you were to try and tackle everything at once, you would go insane, and this would add to the overwhelm instead of minimize it. So the key is in doing this exercise is being able to see at a glance, where am I low? Which scores are, 1 and 2? Maybe I have some 7s, maybe I have some 2s, and then you can prioritize those areas in terms of action that you take. Because the whole point of this workshop, just to say, is this idea that we spend most of our time working in our business, delivering what we do, whether we're coaches or healers or mindfulness practitioners, whatever it is we do, we spend most of our time there, creating our services, offering our services, and delivering our services. But what's really important, and what I kind of want to help you with this workshop, is this idea of spending some time working on your business. It's super important to do that, as well as working in your business. So what this wheel can do is just give you a way of prioritizing where you need to focus your working on your business activities. So now we're going to go deeper into the pillars and the model. So starting with vision, and again, as I mentioned, we have a whole I have a whole workshop just on creating your business vision, so I'm not going to go into it too deeply, and I would strongly recommend that you attend that if you're interested in creating a vision, not just a vision, but a mission and values as well for your business. So a couple of things to say about what your vision is. It's a picture of what success will look like at a particular point in time in the future. So one of the things that I've shared in the chat, if you scroll right to the top, you'll see I shared a series of links. One of them will take you to the vision I've created for my Female Business Academy. It's quite detailed, and you can go there and have a look now if you want. And it's important to say that at this stage, there's so much out there on the internet about vision and mission and values and all of that stuff, and mission statements. What I've shared with you in the chat in terms of my vision is the way I'm talking about creating a vision. So it's a detailed picture of what success will look like, not a short statement about what your business does or the change your business hopes to see in the world. That's what I would describe as your business mission, and that's what I shared at the beginning of the presentation in terms of my business mission. So it's not your business mission. It's also not your business plan or strategy. And it's just important to know it's this real visually descriptive picture of what success looks like for you. And so Ari Weinzweig, who talks a lot about visioning, he's a massive fan of visioning in business. He says, vision is a picture of what things are going to look like when we successfully arrive at where we're going. I like that quote. So why is it important? It gives you a direction of travel. If we don't know where we're going, it's so easy to get lost, obviously. It can inspire and motivate us when things get tough. Sometimes we forget why we're doing this, especially if we're feeling tired or fearful, or we're not seeing the success that we want to see. It can be easy to forget why we're doing it and start thinking, why don't I just go back to the 9 to 5 and get a regular income and all of that stuff. But having a strong vision really helps us reconnect to our passion for why we created the business in the first place. And it can also get other people on board, whether that's your customers. You might want to share your vision with your customers, staff if you have them, any peers, and the universe in general. I think it's super important to have a clear and public vision that you share with people. And so moving into the how of the vision, I think this comes from Ari, who I quoted earlier. He suggests that we have 4 steps to creating our vision. The first is to pick your time frame. Step 2 is to define what success looks like for you. Step 3 is to define the impact you want to have in the world. And step 4 is to describe how will it feel when you've reached that vision for you, your clients, the world at large. So this is where you might want to just turn to the workbook, and I've put those questions in there. So again, we may not have time to work through these. I'm going to say a few words on them on the call, but it's something that you might want to revisit after the call. So what is the time frame for your vision? I would recommend between 3 and 5 years. Some people have 10-year visions, but what I would say on that is whatever feels good to you. If it feels crazy to have a 10-year vision because you can't even begin to imagine, then don't. And if it feels good to have a 1-year vision, then do. So it's not strictly 3 to 5 years, but it's what feels good and what you feel capable of visualizing. I personally have a 3-year vision, which I wrote this year. So when I look at my vision, it's my picture of what success will look like at the end of April in 2020, for example. And that feels good to me. It feels long enough to give me time to create it, and not so long that I feel detached from it. Then have a look at and make some notes on what your definition of success is, because it's different to everybody. I talk about business success, but it's different for people. So it might be a financial target. It might be, your health. and having a healthy work-life balance. It might be the impact you want to have in the world. Again, if you look at my vision, you'll see the ways in which, you know, I've incorporated that into my business in terms of, you know, scale, income, impact, time with my family, happy staff. They're all the ways in which I define success, and the impact I want my business to have is in the realms of education and empowerment of women and girls all around the world. So again, what impact do you want your business to have? And again, that can be on your life and any staff. If you're, you know, if you're thinking in your vision that you'll have a team supporting you by that point, great. You know, how are they going to feel? What are they going to, what's the impact going to be on their lives as well as your clients and customers? Maybe you want to donate some of your income to charity. That's in my vision. And so what would be the impact of that? What kind of charities would you support? All of that stuff. And how do you want to feel when you realize your vision? That's really important. I talk a lot about how things feel. I think it's super important. So just to give you the details of the workshop on creating your business vision, it's next Tuesday and it's at 6 p.m. So an hour later than this one started. And to register, it's the same place you would have registered for this one. And that's carolinelearn.com/workshops. So any questions? I'm looking at the time. I don't think we have time for questions, but if you pop anything in, any questions that you have in the chat, I'll be sure to address them later. So I'll just have a look. I see people sharing where they're from. Hey, Sachi. Hey, Steph. Lots of familiar names. So if you have any questions on the vision side, feel free to drop them in the chat and we'll carry on. I'll just move that out of the way. Okay. So next up is tribe. So this is a biggie. And the one thing I want to say about, so this is, vision is not one of the pillars. It's the kind of the top of the model. Now we're into the pillars. And what I would say is the pillars are all distinct and very different in scale and scope and size and how much effort they require, but they're all, in my opinion, equally important. So having a solid tribe is super important. And what do I mean by the word tribe? So your tribe is the group of people who have an influence directly or indirectly on your business. So it's not just your customers, it can be your wider audience. We often have an audience within which our customers and clients are, but it also includes your peers, your mentors, and your collaborators. Why is it important to have a strong tribe? It staves off the loneliness of entrepreneurship, especially if you're an online business owner like most of us are. You know, we're at home, sometimes if we're lucky in a co-working space or a cafe, but we're at home, like behind our computers most of the time. And so it's really important to feel like you're not alone in the world with your work. Also in terms of collaborators, the power of the collective is greater than the power of the individual. That was a hard lesson that I learned. I used to be very, in some ways, anti-collaboration. I wanted things to be done my way, and I always felt that if I had to collaborate, then I would have to compromise. And I couldn't see that the power of the collective is actually greater than the power of the individual. But I so see it now. Now that I have a 7.5-month-old baby and I'm running my business and I work 2.5 days a week, I couldn't do it if I didn't embrace the collective, if I didn't use the power of my tribe, and I hadn't spent the time and taken the time to invest in my tribe. It's incredible. And an example would be just in this week, many of the women in my tribe, in my audience, and paying members of my academy, and also friends, have been sharing stuff about the workshops and about the academy, and it's been incredible. I couldn't have the same reach if I were to do everything on my own. So again, having a strong tribe and a strong community around you expands the reach of your business, and it just feels good. It feels really lovely. So Reid Hoffman says, no matter how brilliant your mind or strategy, if you're playing a solo game, you'll always lose out to a team. I would have scoffed at that a year or so ago, but I completely and utterly agree now. So how? There are a couple of things. Getting really clear on who your ideal client is really important. And I know that's a really controversial one for a lot of people. Again, it's something I go into more deeply in other offerings that I have, and it's a class that we do in the academy. But knowing who your ideal customer is super important. If you're at the beginning of your journey, you can start broad. You don't need to, and I think it's what holds a lot of people up. I think a lot of women get super stuck on, I need to know exactly who my ideal client is, where she shops, what she reads, who she talks to, where she hangs out, all of that stuff, and you can tie yourself up in knots. When I started my business, all I knew is I wanted to work with people who wanted to live a more limitless life. That was when I was doing general life coaching under my Life is Limitless umbrella. And it was no more defined than that. And I coached so many people in so many different things. I coached people who wanted to create businesses. I coached people who were needed help with self-love. I coached people who were struggling with addiction. I coached people who wanted to have a better relationship with their self, had low self-esteem, so many different ways. And through that, I started to learn who my ideal client is. And by ideal client, I mean, who do you love to work with? Who does it light you up to work with? And again, I would really encourage you to not worry about the big details. Really, you want to think about character traits and ways of being. So for me, when I think about my female entrepreneurs, I think about, again, women who want to change the world, heart-led, heart-centered, spiritual, all of that stuff. I don't go into what kind of books they read and what music they listen to and all of that stuff that sometimes you see with the ideal client avatar stuff out there. So knowing your customer is key. Then identifying your mentors. So identify experts in your field. And we're going to talk about this. In fact, these are the 4 areas in the workbook. So I'll just run through these briefly and then we'll look at the questions. So identify experts in your field and create a team of mentors to consult, and I'll explain that in a second. Create a mastermind group. I am a massive advocate of that. I've been in a mastermind for a year or so now. Maybe I can see one of my mastermind sisters on the call. Maybe she can remember how long we've been doing it. It feels like years, in a good way. And identify and reach out to potential collaborators. That's how you build the tribe pillar up. So the action for you, and again, start to have a think about this, but maybe this is something after the call you can sit down and really spend some time journaling on. So who is your ideal client? A great question that a woman, one of my guest teachers in the academy, shared with me in an interview recently is the question, is she you 2 steps back? And I think that's a really valuable question to ask. Often we get so stuck, like, how do I know who she is? And how do I know, how she's showing up in the world? But often, especially in the types of businesses that we're working with, we're trying to support somebody in moving through a transformation that we've already experienced in our life. So is it you 2 steps back? And what does that look like? And then thinking about the struggles and the worries and the concerns and the thoughts that you had 2 steps back can give you a really amazing picture of your ideal client. How does she show up in the world? Is she an action taker? Is she a sensitive soul? Like, what kind of person is she? What are her values? Does she value connection? Does she value courage? These are all really good, important things to know about your ideal client. And again, this can take years to work this stuff out. It's not something that you need to allow to hold you back from just getting started in your business and building your business. So who are your role models in your field? Something that I suggest doing, especially because there's so much stuff out there on the internet, and so many freebies to opt into and webinars to attend and all of that stuff, is really do a cull and go through. I would go through your email inbox and identify, I would say no more than 5, ideally, no more than 5 experts in your field that you think, I trust everything this person says. And think about it now, you'll know who they are. You'll have people who are experts in your world, in your field, and you'll know, like, whenever this person's email pops into my inbox, I read it and I listen to what he or she has to say. Who are they? And when I say, create a team of mentors to consult, what I mean, because so many people can't afford to hire a business coach or pay for a mentor, but there are mentors. There's, what I'm doing now is a form of mentorship in a way. I'm sharing with you what I know about building a business, and it's free. So, pick the people that you really resonate with and listen to them, because so often we spend so much time giving our attention to people who make us feel like less than, or, cause us to feel anxious, or like, suffer from comparing ourselves and feeling like we should be further along than we are. And all of that stuff is just a massive energy and time suck. So really narrow down the people that you listen to, the people who you will allow to be in your team of mentors, as I like to say it, and then unsubscribe from everyone else. It's very liberating, and I highly recommend it. And then, who do you know amongst your peers that you could invite into a mastermind? And just really briefly, and I can see there's Steph saying almost 2 years. It's almost 2 years since I've been in my mastermind. It's with 2 incredible women who also run businesses. I can see that Steph's on the call. I'm not sure if Tiafana is, but and we meet every 2 weeks, almost religiously. We, sometimes for whatever reason we don't, but we meet every 2 weeks for an hour, and we talk about whatever is going on in our life. I think when we first set it up, it was about our businesses, but we talk about everything. We talk about boys, we talk about babies, we talk about business, we talk about everything. And it's incredible. We split that hour between the 3 of us. We share whatever's most pressing for us in our life, and we give each other support and feedback and advice and encouragement and all of that good stuff. It's wonderful to have a mastermind, and I strongly encourage that you go out and find one. And there's so many easy ways to do it. There's so many women, there's so many groups on Facebook for different types of industries and business that you could reach out to people, or just put it out there on your Facebook or on your business page. You're looking for mastermind partners. And then also start to think about collaborations. Is there anyone on your radar that you could reach out to for collaboration? Again, it's something I resisted for such a long time, and now I'm a massive advocate. I couldn't deliver what I deliver in the time I have available if I didn't collaborate. And by that, the example would be the guest experts that I invite into the academy, the interviews I do. Interviewing is a great way to collaborate. You can spend an hour talking to someone on a call, and an expert who can bring something to your business that it might take you days and weeks to research and get that information. And you can record it in an hour and have it out there as content for your audience. So I always think interviews, guest experts, joint projects, affiliate schemes, all of those are amazing things. If someone it has created something incredible that you could share with your audience and possibly make some income from, do that. I've done that with many of my peers, and it works well. So take some time now to just jot down anyone on your radar that you think I'd love to collaborate with, and be brave. Some people we think, they would never say yes, and you'd be surprised. I recently reached out to someone I thought wouldn't say yes to being a collaborator with me, and she has. So it's very exciting, and most people are flattered to be approached. So that takes us to the end of Tribe. I see we're dramatically running out of time, but I'm going to keep going. So again, if any questions pop up, put them in the chat. I see Leslie saying she has I think she's saying a weekly mastermind. Put them in the chat, any comments or questions, and again, I'll look at them after the call or at the end of the call if we have time. And then we're on to pillar 2, which is money, which is a tricky one for many of us. Lots of mindset stuff around money and conditioning that causes us to struggle with it, and a lot of fear, and it's why a lot of people just avoid even thinking about it or looking at it. And it's why for me this pillar is super, super important. And so in this pillar I talk about having real clarity on your business, sales, expenses and profit this month, this year and all time. So I would love to be able to ask each of you, do you know how much you've sold in your business this month, this year, or time? How much you've spent on your business this month, this year, or time? And how much profit have you made this month, this year? And by all time, I mean since your business began. And to have those figures to mind, to be able to call on those figures is really, really useful. And it can be scary because sometimes we don't want to look at it, but it's actually empowering. It's more scary and more disempowering to keep all of that in the dark. So I'm a massive advocate of setting monthly, quarterly and annual financial goals. I'm also an advocate, haven't quite managed to put this into place in my business yet, but to have budgets in place for all planned expenditure. When I did my review of my sales and expenses and profit, I was shocked at how much I was spending on my business with all the things like website hosting and Zoom and Canva and all the tools that I use, as well as books I buy for my clients and courses I buy for myself in the name of my business, all of that stuff. I hadn't been recording it. It's really important to look at what you're spending on your business as well. And then also under money, your pricing strategy, having clarity around what your offerings cost or will cost is super important. And again, an area that a lot of people are unsure of and they're not clear on, and they don't share it publicly on their website and all of this stuff. Again, just get super clear on this stuff. One of my favorite books, any of the women who have been on my any of my calls have heard me talk about this book so much. Jen Sincero's You Are a Badass at Making Money. She says, if you want a business that makes money, be clear on how much you desire to make and how you're going to make it. Do what you love and the money will follow. Works well on a throw pillow but doesn't do much for the bank account. Great quote. She's amazing. A really amazing book. And so again, I've talked about this a bit, but why the clarity around money and your finances alleviates fear and it allows for decisive action. If we know that we're not making enough money, as scary as it can be to face that, it allows us to move forward and make decisions that maybe sometimes difficult decisions, but decisions we need to make to move forward. And it prevents us from living in denial. It's very easy to kind of tell yourself, no, it's fine, it's okay, I'm getting by, or it's going to be fine. But it's really important to not be in denial around this stuff. And again, the clarity and the goals send a signal to our subconscious mind, or if you're that way inclined, which I am, the universe. And it just puts it out there in terms of letting, like I say, your subconscious mind or the universe know this is what I want and this is what I need your support with. And for me, that's been super powerful. So you're probably not going to be able to do this now. But the 4 questions in the workbook are: how much money have you made in your business? How much money have you spent on your business? What any money goals you currently have for this month and this year. And I would suggest if setting money goals is new to you, have a think about what you'd like to make by the end of 2017, and absolutely definitely write down an annual overall money goal for 2018. And then look at how you're going to do that. We're looking at offerings as the next pillar. So looking at your offerings and seeing how many of each of these would I need to sell in order to make that goal. Is it viable? Is it realistic? Can I do it? It's really important. So do that either now on the call or after the call, but definitely do it. And again, just check with the chat if anyone has any questions or comments. Yeah, I love it. Leslie says she has Zoom dates with her biz bestie as a type of mastermind. And yeah, for nearly 2 years that we've been in our staff. It's amazing. Okay, so any questions? Again, you can email me, you can put them in the chat. Entirely up to you. Just move that out of the way and make that big again. Okay, so pillar 3, halfway through. So this is offerings. So what do I mean by offerings? So this is having clarity on how your products and services solve your clients' problems, having clarity on what your products and services are. And again, don't worry if you're at the beginning, you only have one. Maybe you're a coach and you just do one-to-one coaching, that's fine. But ultimately, you probably want to expand what you offer in the world, and I'll talk about that a bit more in a second. And having clarity on what different benefits and outcomes, what the different benefits and outcomes are for each of your products and services is super important. A lot of people focus on features. You know, if we're talking about coaching packages, for example, people will talk about, you know, how many calls and how many hours, and you'll get this free PDF and you'll get this. And people don't really care. That's one of the things that I really realized. People care about benefits and outcomes. How will what you're offering solve my problem, the problem that I have? They don't really care about the logistics or the features, but so many, I see it all the time, people focus on sharing that instead of sharing the benefits and outcomes. So if you don't know what the benefits and outcomes are of what you offer, do that work, sit down and really start to map that out. Also, having a range of price points and depth. Again, this is something that you develop over time. When I first started, I just had my one-to-one coaching package. I had one package, that was it. With time, I've created courses, have the academy, have group programs, one-to-one programs. And so with time, you want to start to look at having a range so that you can reach people at different levels of affordability. Not everybody can afford to spend $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 on coaching, but they can afford $20 a month to be part of your membership program, for example. So just spending some time thinking about that. And then I hate the word sales funnel, so I apologize in advance for using it, but having things in place, which is essentially what a sales funnel is, that connect your ideal customer to your offering. And I would, you know, they can be freebies. It can be something like this, free workshops. It can be free PDFs. It can be opt-ins. There's lots of ways you can do that, but you want something that's going to connect your client or customer to what you're offering and what you're selling. And I love this quote by Brian Tracy: approach each customer with the idea of helping him or her to solve a problem or achieve a goal, not of selling a product or service. So super important. That's how you want to think. You know, so if you have an offerings page or a work with me page, maybe revisit it now and see, am I selling products and services here, or am I approaching, you know, is my approach on this page, I'm approaching it with the idea of helping people to solve a problem. It's something really good to look at. And why is it important to have clarity on your offerings? It is your business. This is the bread and butter of your business. And also having clarity and having distinctions between your different products and services and the impact that they have gives your business a professional and cohesive look. In my old business, Life is Limitless, I had a range of products and services, but they didn't really they were kind of ad hoc. It was like, oh, I think I'll do a course in giving up alcohol, or I think I'll do a course in, you know, getting things done or cultivating connection. And it wasn't cohesive. So looking at your offerings with a bird's eye view and doing some planning and mapping out is super important. And it's important for you, and it also is important because it provides your potential customers with a map of the journey that they can take with you and your business. And so how? We've talked about starting with the ideal client in mind, identifying their problems, dreams, and goals. If you don't know, ask them. I'm a massive fan of market research. The way I do it often is to offer people a 1-hour call. And if there's something that I can offer, if I have a service like coaching that I can offer to them, I'll say, give me half an hour of your time. and I'll ask you some market research questions, and in exchange I'll give you half an hour of coaching, or you can ask me anything on the topic of, because it's going to be your area of expertise, and that's why you're talking to them. So huge fan of market research, and you can do simple surveys in your newsletters or in, on Facebook, that kind of thing. Map your customer journey. I'm going to show you that on a slide in a second. And create and test potential offerings before you invest too much time and money. I'm a big fan of testing. So I see, again, a lot of people trying to create the perfect thing and then saying, I launched it and nothing happened. And first of all, by launch, they mean they sent an email to their newsletter and that's it. But also they hadn't talked to anyone before. They hadn't tested it. They didn't know there was a market for it in the first place. So again, just to use an example for my business, I'm just now coming out of a whole summer of beta testing my academy before I opened it up to the wider public. And had that beta test not worked, I wouldn't have wasted a lot of time and money. It would have just a couple of months where I hadn't put too much money into it. And I could have pulled out and said, okay, it's not going to work. As it is, it has worked and it's working really well and it's wonderful. And so now I'm moving into launching it for real. So I'm a huge fan of testing. And then here we've got the customer journey. So we have a pyramid, and what you have at the bottom, this is where it says free content at the bottom. This is kind of what people refer to in terms of sales funnel. So it's the stuff that's going to connect your ideal client to your business. Then, so I've put in the middle the things, the way I've done it. So at the bottom, you have your low cost offerings. So for example, I have a couple of email courses where they cost like $15, $20, and people get a series of emails. Then you can have your flagship offerings, and I don't know what that would mean for you, but for me, it's my Female Business Academy. And then at the top, you've got your premium offering. And again, I just want to say, if you're at the beginning of the journey, don't worry about this. You just need one offering. You don't have to have all of this stuff. So this is end goal stuff. And the idea here is that the stuff at the bottom, at the lower end of your pyramid, is infinitely scalable. And the stuff at the top is not. So this is where you want to kind of be looking at the difference between one-to-many and one-to-one. So at the top, you're going to have your one-to-one. If you're a coach, I use the example of coaching because it's what I am. So at the top, there's only so many people I can coach in a day. There's only so many hours I've got. So that's not scalable. And I realized that the hard way. I got to a point in my business where my coaching roster was full, and I was like, oh, I need to make more money and I haven't got any more space, and I'm feeling really burnt out. And that's when I transitioned into other things, online courses, my academy, which is like a membership program. So I create with a course or something like a membership program, you have the same investment in time, but the scalability comes in terms of the amount of people you can reach. So for example, with my academy, I could reach, and you'll see, I think in my vision, it's 3,000 or 5,000 women. You can reach thousands, for example, but you can't do that with the one-to-one. So that's what I mean by scalable there. So just something to think about if you have a couple of products and you're just to start to get organized, basically. And then the action for this area, again, going back to the workbook, is taking some time to complete the 4 questions. I would recommend at the end of the call. So what different products and services does your business currently offer, or do you want to offer? And again, I can't stress it enough. If you're at the beginning, just pick one. Don't start. I see it all the time. I did it. I want to do an online course and run a retreat and do one-to-one coaching and don't do that. Just pick one thing. And when that's starting to work, move on to something else with this map in mind, if that's helpful. And then take some time to journal on the benefits and outcomes for your customers of each of your offerings and the different price points. Are they scalable? Are they not? Are they at the lower end of the pyramid, or are they at the top? Just to start to map that out. And then what free content do you have in place that's going to connect your offerings to your ideal clients? And make sure they do connect. Don't have a free opt-in that's got nothing to do with the actual things that you're selling. So again, it's just having things in alignment, having things lined up So they make sense to you and they make sense to the people who come into contact with your business. Okay, again, any questions in the chat if you want me to look at? I know we've gone over time, it's 5 past. So I'm going to keep going. If people need to drop off, I understand. I will keep going through the three final pillars, and I will make the recording available to people. So don't worry. I don't want you to feel like you have to stay on if you have to go. So moving into connection. What is connection? So this is a massive one for me. This is the big one that a lot of people get stuck on. It's the bit where there's tons and tons and tons of information out in the world around connection, and it's basically all the ways in which you connect with your customers or your potential customers. And so the reason I use the word connection is because I could put marketing here, but so many people bristle and struggle with marketing, because especially I think heart-centered female entrepreneurs, because it feels icky, it can feel salesy. We feel like, the whole reason we're doing what we're doing in the world is because we want to make a difference and we want to change the world, and the last thing we want to do is have people feel like we're just selling to them. And so what I try to do here with this pillar is reframe that whole sales and marketing piece in terms of connection, because and I say reframe, but actually that's what it is. I think it's a misunderstanding. What happens is that a misunderstanding occurs when we think we have to suddenly switch into something dark, something icky and salesy, and we struggle with it. So here, what I recommend is that you get really clear on your specific ways of connecting to your audience and your ideal client. And there's, like I say, there's so much advice and information out there that we can feel like we need to do everything. We need to have the perfect brand, the perfect website, perfect social media channels, perfect Pinterest boards, all of that stuff. I see it all the time. I look at this stuff and I see it all the time. And it's not. To do well on this pillar, you've got to know your way, your specific way of connecting with your audience and your ideal client, and focus on that. When you try and do everything, all of the shoulds out there in terms of marketing, it's what I think really, really trips a lot of female entrepreneurs up. And so we're looking for your unique approach to building relationships with your people. So, for example, if you keep reading, it's super, super important to be on Facebook Live, and video is where it's at, and you've got to have video to make your business a success. But you absolutely loathe the idea of being on video. And so you're paralyzed with this idea of, I need to make video, but I don't want to. Then, how pointless is that? So you want to be looking for your unique approach to building relationships, and it's got to feel authentic. It's got to feel authentic to you. People will know if it's not your way. And so looking at your way of presenting your business that aligns with who you are and what your business stands for. And then I've got a quote. It's always good to have a quote from good old Brené Brown. She says, I define connection as the energy that exists between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued, when they can give and receive without judgment, and when they derive sustenance and strength from the relationship. Now, most people wouldn't look at that as a quote around business or marketing, but I do. For me, that is precisely what this pillar is all about. It's having the people who come into contact with your business feel seen, heard, and valued, and that they can give and receive without judgment. I just think that is a complete game changer for your business if you can start to see connection as a primary way to run your business, basically, rather than I've got to market to or sell to potential clients. I just think it's a different mindset, and it changes everything. And so why is it important? So how effectively you connect with your audience and potential customers does determine your ability to sell. And that's why it's super important that it feels good to you, because if you feel crappy in the way that you're trying to connect with people, it's just not going to work. I mean, I've been in that situation. I've been in the situation where I've been trying something that doesn't work for me and it feels icky. And I've been in the position where someone's trying to sell to me in a way that is clearly not authentic to them and not in their zone of genius. And so it just feels bad all around. And then without connection, there is no sales, and without sales, there is no business. So I know a lot of people really struggle with the whole sales piece and selling and all of that stuff. But it's super important. It's not, without sales, there is no business. One of my favorite, well, the only sales coach I know, but she's wonderful. She's one of my favorite women online. She says that without sales, there is no business. And so with the connection piece, when you can reframe it as connection rather than marketing to people, it allows people to really get to know you, which is so, so important. It's really, really valuable. And then how do we do it? So identifying your unique business perspective and sharing it. And that means not trying to be all things to all people. And just starting to say things that, to share your opinion basically with the world in terms of your business. So if there's something in your industry that really winds you up, that you see all the time, then share it. So for example, those of you on my newsletter list will have seen I shared a rant I put in Facebook in February, I think it was this year, around webinars and how I kept attending webinars that felt really pointless. There was no useful information. The people were just talking about how amazing they were and then selling a product at the end it felt so icky to me that it became really important to me to do something differently. And actually, create things that could be seen as really valuable. And because if people understand the value of what you do, you don't need to sell. That's the beauty of it. You don't need to sell. People can see it and feel it. Working out what your business stands for. What your business values. A lot of people know what it's like to have personal values, but what are your business values? What's your business mission? And finding authentic ways to communicate those to the world. These are all really super important. Again, you see so much of the marketing stuff is around logistics and features. Get this PDF and it will give you X, Y, and it has X, Y, and Z in it, and you'll get 5 things and all of this stuff, instead of actually just communicating what your business stands for, what its mission is, and being authentic in that. And then choosing the methods of connection that align with your strengths and preferences. And again, I go back to the Facebook Live example. If it's not your thing, don't force yourself to do something that doesn't feel right to you. If you're more of an introvert and the idea of kind of being all over social media makes your skin crawl, but you're an amazing writer, then write guest posts for some of the really big blogs in your field who accept guest posts, and raise your connect with your people in that way, and raise awareness of your business in that way. So I'm giving you here and now permission to just let go of all of the shoulds for your business and all the things that we're told we need to do in order to be successful. If it doesn't feel good, it's not going to succeed. And then one thing I wanted to share with you quickly is this distinction between creation and attraction. So, and this, again, it comes to the connection and marketing piece in terms of the way in which you create clients, let's say. We'll use it with the term create clients. So attraction is putting information out there in the world and communicating your business and what you're offering, and with a view to attracting people to your business. So it's, that's maybe your website copy or your brand or social media posts. That's the attraction model. Creation might be sitting down and writing a list of people in your audience who you would love to work with, and then reaching out to them by email and saying, I'd love to talk to you about a proposal I have, and creating a conversation around working together. And so there's a couple of bullets on each of these. So creation is connecting with people on a daily basis, making sure that your network is alive and lit up. I often give clients the challenge of reaching out to 50 people in a week, not for any purpose, not to sell, not to talk about business, but just to connect, just with the pure intention of connection. Stop trying to sell to people and start serving. Really important concept that I got from the Prosperous Coach approach. So any coaches out there who haven't yet read the Prosperous Coach book, I strongly recommend it. Reaching out to people on a personal basis who fit your ideal client, and listening to people instead of talking. So asking people what they're struggling with, what's going on for them, rather than trying to talk to them about what you're doing. And then the attraction model, I used to be all for creation and a bit against attraction, and now I realize that the two are complementary and equally important in my view. Ensure that the ways in which you communicate reflect in your business values. Don't be scared to have a unique opinion, and get super specific with time on your audience and who they are. And don't be scared to turn the wrong people off. You know, a lot of people try to be all things to all people, and we get terrified of turning people off. And it's actually a godsend. It's really important that we do turn some people off, because the more we do that, the more we're going to appeal to the people who are our people. So it's really important. So again, the action for you after the call is to take 5 minutes to complete the 4 questions in the workbook. So which area of connection do you feel most aligned in? What problem does your business solve? What makes your business unique and your business offering unique? And if you had to choose one way to connect with your ideal client, what would it be? And I really strongly emphasize one way. If you feel overwhelmed by marketing and social media and all the things you need to do to connect to your clients or your audience, just pick one thing. Just pick one way. Maybe it's to offer free coaching sessions. Maybe it's to create a group and really deeply, and profoundly serve the people in that group. Whatever it is, pick one way and put all of your love and attention there. And then we'll skip the any questions because we're out of time. So pillar 5. We might do this in 90 minutes. That's good. So pillar 5 is service. So what do I mean by service? So I've talked about it a little bit, but and being of service is probably, for my audience anyway, my usual audience of heart-centered entrepreneurs, is pretty self-explanatory, but it's one of those things that a lot of businesses, even if they're in the service industry, the work that they do is around serving people, they don't actually build it into their business. So what do I mean by service? I mean going above and beyond as often as you can, as many times as you can. I've tried to do it a bit with this workshop. It's a free workshop, and I've spent hours pulling together these slides and doing research and creating diagrams and all of that stuff, because for me it's really important to serve as powerfully and as profoundly as I can. Having your conscious attention on serving deeply. So being aware in all that you do in your business and bringing your conscious attention back to this idea of service. And are you serving the people in front of you? Sometimes we get lost in, I need to make money and I need to sign a new client, and we forget. It's easy to forget about service. But if we can come back to who can I serve in this moment, regardless of whether they can afford to spend money with me or whether or not they're going to hire me as a client, who can I serve in this moment, or who can I serve today? That was a question my business coach had me ask on a regular basis. When you wake up and you don't know what to do, who can I serve today? And it might be sending, a PDF that you think would be helpful to somebody who's struggling with something. It might be, and this is not just serving your customers and clients, it's serving your audience or even your tribe. It might be your peers, your colleagues, your mastermind. But if you have your conscious attention on serving deeply, magical things will happen. And then having a focus on client astonishment. This is something a phrase I got from Rich Lippman and Steve Chandler, and also Carrie Green, who wrote She Means Business, talks about it in terms of client delight. It's not just client, it's so far beyond customer service, which is what, most of us are aware of. It's like, how can I astonish my clients? And I put here not a strategy, because it's important to make sure that you don't go into this space of, I've got to serve people in order to make a shit ton of money. It doesn't work. I've seen it. I've felt it. I've been on the receiving end of somebody using service as a strategy rather than having it be a place that they come from or a value that they have that their business holds dear. And so, some ways in which you can do it, it might be giving your best stuff away for free, not holding back in terms of what you give away for free. It might be, in your packages, you say that you get, these 5 things, and then you give, 6 things, 7 things, or you give your clients an extra session, or you send them something that they weren't expecting you to send them. There's lots of ways. There's lots of ways to do it. And so a quote from Rich Litvin, which is where I got this whole concept from, is when you put your energy into total service, the energy flows back to you in the form of clients and wealth. So again, it's easy to read that and think, I'll use it as a strategy to get clients and wealth, but that's not the point. But it just is the way it is. If you're in total service and they're coming from a place of total, genuine, authentic service, the energy does flow back to you. I can vouch for that. And why is it important? As a heart-centered entrepreneur, it's the reason you're doing this. Also, people feel the energy of your motivation. So if your intention and your motivation for your business is to serve deeply the people in front of you, people feel that. People know it, and people feel it. And it creates devoted, loyal fans of you and your business. I've experienced that myself. People know when you really genuinely care about their success, and you're not just trying to sell stuff to them. And it feels amazing. It feels really good, expansive, and motivating for you to be in a place of service. And I love this. Nelson Boswell says, here is a simple but powerful rule. Always give people more than they expect to get. And so how do we do it? Learn to astonish your clients. Sit down and make a list of all the ways in which you could astonish your clients. And again, it's the unexpected. Do something that they wouldn't expect you to do. Under promise and over deliver. It's one of the things I always say. Always come back to an intention to serve, even when it feels difficult to do so. And so for me, that's when, times in my business in the past where money's been tight and I felt, you can go into that energy. I need to get this person as a client. I need to, that's the perfect time to come back to service. That's the perfect time to forget about selling and just try to deeply serve the person in front of you, whether they are going to buy from you or not, or hire you as a coach or whatever it may be. So always coming back to an intention to serve. And then it might sound counterintuitive, but put systems in place to help you. When my client roster was so full, my ability to astonish my clients and have those kind of like impromptu, or I'll send them this thing, or I'll send them this quote, or make them a video, or do whatever it might be. It just felt, I just didn't have the headspace for it. I was so busy with my actual calls. And one of the things that I did, and Steve Chandler recommended this, is I had a bowl with all of my clients' names on pieces of paper in the bowl. And every Monday I would take a name out of the bowl, and it would be like, this week I'm going to astonish this client. And I would do everything I could to put my full attention on that client. And then the next week it would be a different client. And you can do that on a daily basis if you want this, who am I going to serve today? Pull the name out of the hat. I experimented for a while with 2 bowls. So I had the bowl of names, and then I had a bowl of the ways in which I'll astonish, so ideas and inspiration. I would pull a name, and I would and it might be like, make a video for so-and-so. And then I would go and do that. And so it's really helpful to have systems to help you serve if you can. So your action following the call is to think of a business that has served you powerfully. What was it about the service or experience that was powerful for you? And what was the impact of that experience on your relationship with that business? What could you start doing today to serve your clients and audience more powerfully? And I have a few examples here, but I'm going to give you the simplest one. There's a bar. Where we live in Valencia in Spain, we're surrounded by bars and restaurants, and they're everywhere. But there's one bar, and it's not the nicest, it's not the cleanest, doesn't have the best service, but they give us free olives. And so whenever we go for Friday night alcohol-free beer, we know we're going to get this bowl of lovely olives, and it's silly. I mean, it seems like nothing, but we would choose to go there over any other bar because we know we're going to get these olives. And it's just a way they've found of serving their people and delighting their customers. And it does, you know, for us, because we love olives, we love it and we always go there. So the impact of that action is that we go there over any other bar in the vicinity. And there are probably loads of bars nearby that do the same, but we found that one and we've stuck with it, and they are pretty friendly, so that's nice. So have a think about experiences that you've had. And then again, if there are any questions, drop them in the chat for me and I'll look at them after. And we are on the final pillar. This is very exciting. We have three minutes till 90 minutes. So I did schedule an hour, but I thought it would take 90 minutes. So it feels like I'm kind of on time for me. So what do I mean by support? So this is the processes and systems that you have in place for the smooth running of your business. And it can include third-party software and solutions to automate tasks where you can. And if you're further down the line, this wouldn't be relevant to you if you're just starting out, but outsourcing, hiring, and delegating. And it can be other stuff as well. It can be, you know, it can be asking your mastermind to support you. It can be asking your partner to let you have a night off from the baby so you can have a hot bath after a hard day at work. So there's lots of ways, but it's having support in place so that you can do your business to the best of your ability. Why is it important? Because having support for the task that you can have support for frees your time up for you to be in your zone of genius. And by that, I mean the thing that you deliver. So for example, for me as a coach, I was spending tons of time organizing my diary and going back and forth with emails about time zones and, you know, and then I decided to invest in Calendly and I have it all automated. So now I just send someone a link and they book a session and that's it. I don't have to spend, you know, an hour of my day going back and forth trying to find a slot that works. It's also more efficient for you and the other person, and it's more professional. For sure, it's far easier for a client to book a session with you or call using a link than it is to go back and forth. So what's annoying for you and what takes away your time and wastes your time also wastes your customer's time. And it makes it easier if you have your support kind of sorted and you've looked at your support needs. It makes it easier to delegate and to expand your team. So I talk about building support in even when you're a solopreneur and you haven't yet, you're not yet able to have a VA or have a content manager or a team. You can start thinking now about the tasks that you would delegate if and when it comes time to expand the team. Because if you don't do it, then you take someone on, you're going to be completely overwhelmed by what you have to hand over. So start thinking now about the areas in which you need support in your business. And why else is it important? It keeps you sane. That's for sure. And over the last year, I've gone on a massive support drive in my business. And I realized when I was creating this workshop how many things I've put in place that make my life easier. So the how, look for trouble spot areas in your business, those areas where you know you're spending a lot of time and it's not the best way for you to spend your time. And then seek out solutions. And if you can invest. There's a lot of solutions out there, software solutions that are free. Like they have a free level, then there's a pro level. And most of the things that I now have in my business that I pay for, when I first started, I used the free version. And then when I could afford to invest, I invested. And so tools, just a handful of the tools I use. Zoom, this is the software that we're on now. And again, it's super cheap. I think it's $15 a month. It's not crazy expensive. Canva, I use to do all my design. I designed this presentation in Canva. Calendly, I use to schedule all of my meetings. It's what you will have used to register for this call. Hootsuite is something I use to schedule social media, although I'm terrible at thinking ahead with social media, so I don't use it very often. Google Apps is what I use for my emails. And so what do you use? If you have anything that's not on my list that you want to share in the chat, go ahead and do so. And then your action for this area is to think of 3 areas where you need more support in your business. List out the different ways that support could be provided. Ask yourself what processes or systems could you put in place that would free up your time. And then look at what you could potentially outsource to an external provider. And if you don't have the money yet, make it a goal. Put it, by the end of 2018, I would like to outsource, the admin in my business. Or I'd like to, for me, my next outsourcing is going to be a content manager. That's my, when I can afford to hire a content manager, I'll do that. So plan it in, make it a goal now, even if you can't afford it at this moment. And so my question to you now is, if you were to rate yourself again with the wheel in terms of your level of confidence or knowledge or understanding, would it be higher? I'm hoping that your answer to that is yes. And if you want to have a go at rescoring yourself, feel free to do that. And then your next steps really are to prioritize, plan, and set goals under each of the 6 pillars. And so you'll see in the back of the workbook, we've got space for you to create one goal, write one goal under each pillar. And I say one goal because it's super important. Otherwise, you would be completely overwhelmed. So I want, from everything that I've said, for you to pick one goal and write it in the workbook. And then I just wanted to say a couple of words about the Female Business Academy. The reason that I've been doing these workshops is to give people a flavor of the kind of topics and content that we cover in the Academy. It's something that I mentioned earlier I've been doing in beta over the summer. It's an online school which offers in one place business classes, advice, tools and strategies, community, inspiration, and so much more for a very affordable monthly subscription fee. If you take up the early bird offer, which is ends on Friday, it's only €20, which is around, I think it's around $20 a month. And the mission of the Academy is to educate, empower, and inspire female entrepreneurs to rise up and kick some business ass, and in turn inspire other women to do the same. Female empowerment is a massive, massive why when it comes to the work that I do online. I also wanted to share with you some key dates. So there's 2 more free workshops, and again, they're on topics that we go into in real depth in the Academy. Often the calls in the Academy are a bit different to this. They're longer, although this one's gone on around the same amount of time, and they're usually they're interactive. The women have the videos and microphones opened, and we have conversations and talks. So this is the kind of class style call, and I have 2 more of these. We have the Creating Your Business Vision on Tuesday the 24th, and a Turning Pro workshop on Thursday the 26th. And I would love it if you came to those as well. And they will probably be more timely, they won't run over quite as much because they're not quite as meaty. This is the entire strategy for how to look at your business, so it's kind of difficult to squeeze it into an hour. And then just some key dates in terms of the launch of the Academy. As I said, on Friday, the early bird ends, and it goes from €20 a month to €25 a month. And then on Friday, the 27th, we close enrollment for the year. And we'll open it again in 2018. But the price may well change. I can't guarantee the price will be the same. So if you're interested in joining us in the Academy and having access to more classes like this, and all of the classes live under the different pillars. So we take each of the pillars and we go into them in more detail in terms of the individual elements and individual classes. If you're interested, you can find out more and enroll at femalebusinessacademy.net. And then the last thing I want to say is please do keep in touch. I have my main website, which is carolineleon.com, and it's there, it's /workshops if you want to find the workshops. I have the femalebusinessacademy.net, which is where the academy lives. Right now, there's just a sales page up, but behind it is the all of the classes and all of that stuff. So if you were to sign up, you get a username and password and you get access to that. And if you have any questions, anything that came up that you didn't make sense or you want to know more about, you can email me at caroline@carolinemyon.com. And that's it. I feel like I've just run a marathon. So I'm going to stop. Let's see if I can. There we go. And I'm just there. You can see my face again. So that's it, ladies. I just wanted to put the video on so you can see me, and I'm all sweaty in my office. It's quite warm here in Spain. I hope that was useful. I apologize that we ran over so much. Like I said, if there's anything, Louise says thank you. Thank you, everyone. I know a lot of people had to drop off because it went over, but the recording will be made available. And that's it, lovelies. If you haven't joined the Female Business Collective on Facebook, that's also a free group that I use where I share stuff. But you'll get the recording, and that's it. I'm done. So I hope you have lovely days, evenings, mornings, wherever you are in the world. And I hope to see you on the next workshop. Take care.